It's all about the macro productions.
What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Look, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dave on NBC.
Jack Marius Tack Theratrix. Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Mumbai Gudafi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangles in Fort Lauderdale?
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the Sears hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I'm your host, Charlie Robinson. If you're watching us on Rockfin or Rumble or listening wherever podcasts are served, thanks a million. We appreciate the support. We couldn't do it without you. Have you rated the show? Oh, we know. It's not an ego trip. I assure you, it's an algo trip. Those damn algorithms, they hate the show. So we have been told that the best way to combat that is that if we get a lot of ratings of the show, hopefully you think we've earned 5 stars, maybe write a little something. It's easy to do. It'll take you 5 seconds, and I certainly do appreciate it. Hey, if you want to connect with me, the best way, the website, macroaggressions.io is the place to do that. Big thank you to our sponsors. They make this show happen. Legal Shield has been doing this for half a century in the United States and Canada. They've been providing their customers with access to a high-powered attorney in their area for a very reasonable price. How reasonable? $30 a month. Pretty reasonable. $1 a day. That'll get you access to an attorney in your area that can help you with a variety of things. You'll get an app on your phone that'll show you all the things that they can do for you. Medical directives, financial power of attorneys, things like that. If you need to get your last will and testament, you can do that. It's a good place to start. If you run a small business, big enough to be making some money, but not big enough to have your own legal department, there's a small business service that you can have for that too. If you carry a gun, they have documentation for you. There's a lot going on. I suggest you just go to the website that they built specifically for this show, www.don'tgetpushedaround.com, and take a look for yourself and see what you think, because there's a lot happening over there. They have a lot of options. There's ID Shield as well. So if you are somebody that thinks you might need access to an attorney, or you just don't have a will, God, you got to have that. Last thing you want to do is die and let the state get involved in your affairs. It's got to be the worst. So be proactive, not reactive. Don'tgetpushedaround.com is the place to go. Just read up about it and see what you think. Also, since we're on the theme of shields, let's talk about EMP Shield. They have been our sponsor for the last 1.5 years now, and I'm really glad that they are. They got a nice little free advertisement from the solar situation that we had a couple of weeks ago. So, listen, I mean, if you're thinking about it, look, a realistic thing is lightning. It happens. It'll hit, it can screw up a lot of your electronics. If you have an EMP Shield device, you can install it on your car, on your house, on your motorhome or RV or generator. If you've got any of those things, you can buy a bundle package, get a couple of them for a more reasonable price. I don't know. You can install it yourself. It fits like a Type 2 surge protector. So take a look at it. See what you think. EMPshield.com is the place to go for that. The discount code on your way out the door is MACRO. That'll save you a little bit of money. And of course, You're going to need it. Oh, boy. All right. The business is taken care of. Now we can get down to talking to really one of my favorite people that I've met over the last couple of years. He is the host of Conspiracy Synergy. He's a goddamn great filmmaker. Ladies and gentlemen, back on the show, Teace Snyder. Good to see you again, Teace. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me back on, Charlie. Always great to talk.
Well, listen, I watched your movie. Holdmethemovie.com is the place for people to go. If you want to go check this out, the movie is available for you to watch it. It's this is a value for value situation here as well. So if you are in a position where you have more money than time, please donate some money. If you have more time than money, please invest your time to share the movie with people that you think might find it interesting. And I watched it yesterday, and it's interesting. And I wish you didn't have to make this movie. But it opens up a whole can of worms here, and I'll let you describe it, because it's a sensitive topic. It's a topic that I think, especially where you're from in Canada, is starting to take on a more, I don't know. There's a sinister component to it when the state gets involved in this. And there's a loving peacefulness to it when human beings are involved, but there's something diabolical happens when the government sticks their fingers into this. Can we escape from mere generalizations and let the audience know what we're talking about here?
Yeah, sure thing. So it's a really important point that you made, and it's why I'm really happy to talk to you about it, because you've done the necessary research into the broader phenomena of like large control grids clamping down on human mercy. And that's something that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think, that mercy can be weaponized. And so talking to someone such as yourself, it's like you're appreciative of that. Now, the film specifically doesn't deal with the bureaucratic reality of how these things are unfolding. It's set in a fictional capacity. And the basic idea of it is that it's about a woman whose job it is to hold and console people who are being voluntarily euthanized. And that's set in a general, like, ambiguous location in the United States deliberately, so that it doesn't get too wrapped up in the particular details of the legislation or the population. And instead, it's just more about the general philosophical concept of what it is to have someone there with you at end of life. And that touches on doctor-assisted dying, palliative care, hospice, end-of-life caregiving. And that's something that really is going to be thrust on all of us at one point or another, whether we're in a bed or whether we're caring for someone who is. And so it's really just the idea that we're supposed to be there with one another. We're supposed to be closer with one another. And yet we exist in these top-down control systems, which have been implemented by design to make us sick over the course of our lives, to make us extraordinarily vulnerable at the end of our lives, and then to basically neglect us. And that's devastating, and it's horrible. And so I wanted to create a film that spoke to all of those realities in an indirect way, so that I could invite people's personal experiences to be a part of the conversation.
Well, mission accomplished. It's a heavy-duty movie. It's the type of film that when you get done watching it, you have to kind of you maybe just kind of need to go for a walk a little bit, and process everything that you've seen. It's I don't know. I wouldn't describe it as a sad movie necessarily. I mean, there's some sad components in it, but it's just like it's just an honest look at like the reality of this very fragile life that we have, and everything seems like it's all put together until, maybe at the very end. You mentioned that the state, the state sort of discards people. I mean, it's like the old, Eskimos that you get towards the end of your life, and they put you on the little ice sheet, push you off, and say, "Good luck, go off there and die on your own. We've got to protect this tribe." I guess there's always been some sort of, depending on where you are, some cultures treat this very coldly. Others are extremely warm and keep this multi-generational and keep you grow up, you come back to the family, maybe when you get a little bit older, and there's value in that. How did you even come across this as a a concept or a topic for making films. I mean, you make a lot. You've been making films for a while. I'm just curious about this particular topic. Why this? Why you?
Yeah, sure. So I had the original idea for the film. I was actually spooning with my girlfriend at the time, just lying there. And I got a vivid picture in my own mind of an anthropology textbook that I'd had. And in that, it was a couple of people who had been buried by volcanic ash. And what they'd done in their last moment together was to hold each other. And I thought how beautiful of an idea that would be if that were someone's job. And I just started writing the script the next day, finished it about a month or a month and a half later, made a few minor adjustments along the way. But I wrote it with Hannah Fearman, who's the lead actress, in mind, because she was actually dating the director of photography, who was a friend of mine from film school. And we knew some other people that we'd made short films with, both myself and him. And then we kind of just wanted to get everyone together in a way where we could tell a tender story that touched on a very important theme. And it isn't something that was just in that moment of time. It was something that was going to continue being a story that unfolds in not only the paradigm that we're in, but hopefully one that we're able to create, which is less built around these large institutional systems and more people who actually care, reaching out for one another and being there. That's the idea.
Yeah, there were multiple storylines running through this, and again, I'm not going to try and, I don't want to give anything away. I don't know that what I'm even going to talk about will give anything away, but you've got the end of life component that is obvious, right? It's the theme of it's the point of the movie. But you guys get into a lot of the issues that you have with the medical system in general. And that, I think, is something that people, whether they can relate to the end of life scenario in this, they can most definitely relate to having issues dealing with the medical system and how deeply unfair it is, disconnected from humanity, how it puts you in situations where you have to make decisions that you don't want to make in order to be eligible for state-funded care, and you need care, but you don't really want it to come from them, and you have to do something. And of course, we're all, in my mind, I'm looking at this and I'm going, COVID, like years of this, years of people being pushed into a corner and being forced to make decisions against their own better judgment, maybe even against their own health, autonomy, and having to submit to the state when they didn't want to submit to the state. My assumption is you're pretty anti-state as well, but how did you feel about that's maybe putting it mildly, but great job on capturing both of these really important storylines and sort of intertwining them together in a way that doesn't come off preachy. You just watch it and you go, oh yeah, I can envision this, I can envision state healthcare doing something like this. So was that kind of the point, was to sort of talk about this very beautiful side of the end of life, and then the contrast of how dark and shitty things can get once you involve the government?
Yeah, that's definitely a side of it. And like you said, the film sort of touches on a variety of different converging and diverging themes deliberately in an ambiguous way. And I structured it that way because a lot of what goes on in filmmaking, generally speaking, is that a movie will tell you what to think, what to feel, and what to believe. And sometimes that's great. That's a wonderful film, and it's exactly what's needed. But other times it steps on a conversation that's better had in real life. So I wanted to create a narrative structuring that used the assumptions and personal grief and experiences of the viewer in a way in which it would almost be a collaborative story that unfolds in their mind. So that's when I'll have something go near a subject, but I won't necessarily hammer on it. And when you do that, it elicits from the viewer their own personal experience, the things that they've been through, the people that they've lost, the altercations that they've had with the medical system. Like you said, I'm not exactly a fan of the state. I'm an anarchist, and I think that the existence of these systems were created by design to keep humanity behind. And they have worked miraculously. And those of us who have poked our heads out of the cave and are trying to get other people to do the same, it's very difficult to do that when they're being kept sick their entire life. So it is something that deeply touches on the personal way in which these things come to unfold on a very individual level. And if people take the time to watch the film, they'll experience that. And like you said, it's one of those things where you kind of just want to go for a walk after, because it's a guided, therapeutic kind of film in a way in which it helps you understand what's important to you. And then it motivates you to want to be a part of the conversation, because this sort of thing isn't going to go away. And with things like the World Health Treaty and all of that kind of stuff coming down on us, conjoined with grassroots initiatives to try and just be merciful to people at the end of life, that is a hell of a situation that we're facing and will be until we reorient and basically take control of the conversation.
Yeah, the World Health Organization has decided that one of the best ways to come at this world government thing is to create pandemics and situations in which they can declare legally this is a global pandemic, and therefore we now step in and we have authority over all of these countries that have signed on to this. It's diabolical, of course, but you can understand their line of thinking. I mean, if you're trying to create world governance, you could do it that way, and that would definitely be a way to do it. The problem is you have to create endless boogeymen to come and justify this pandemic or whatever it is. And so as we've watched it get a little bit more vague. You know, it's COVID was a pandemic, and then you go, yeah, but also, you know, I mean, climate change and gender ideology, and you go, what are you talking about? This is a pandemic. We're having a gender pandemic? Please elaborate. Use the whiteboard. Take all the time you need. I'd love to see you diagram this, because this sounds like nonsense. And of course it is nonsense, and we recognize this, but you're right. This is something that we need to pay attention to, because this is a story. Like, your movie is a story about something that happened in that moment in time, but it is most definitely not limited to that moment in time. I think people can watch this movie today. They can watch it 10 years from now, and it will still have that same, the storylines will still be the same. The issues will still be the same. The how you treat people towards the end, end of their life says a lot about you as a person and a society. Does it not?
Oh yeah, no, you're so spot on. And that's really just it exactly. I mean, it's really difficult to elaborate on how important that is, just because it's a deeply personal thing. And we don't necessarily, in the online environment of bullying and hostility and sort of just removing ourselves from our own vulnerability and that which we're supposed to just be sharing with one another, because grief isn't something that we're supposed to put on ourselves necessarily or carry all alone. We're supposed to be there for each other. It's the whole idea of the film is hold me. You want someone to be there with you in those tender moments. And that's something that's extraordinarily difficult to do in the contemporary environment. So you're very right.
But this is a story about people that choose to euthanize themselves. This is not the state doing this. Is this about, I mean, the movie itself is about people that, or is it?
Well, they're seemingly making that choice, but it's like, there's the line from the mother when she's having the candid conversation with her daughter that it's like, I don't want to take this place with me. So I've created this sort of ominous shadow of the entity that they exist in that does not give them the choice to necessarily get the care that is needed, that sort of puts them in corners where they feel forced or coerced or just pressured, or as if they're an inconvenience. And it's that subtle, unspoken pressure that can be put upon someone in a vulnerable time that becomes so excruciating that they think they're doing something kind by removing themselves from this earth. And I can understand the idea of someone like I've had a family member who went through doctor-assisted dying. They were terminal cancer. They were at the point where there was no quality of life, and they went through that in their own garden with a select number of people around them. And I can respect that. I understand that.
Sure.
But what these systems do is they very narrowly inch you towards an earlier decision based on the circumstances that we exist in. And that's something that as things get economically worse, and they will, and as things get more frantic and censored so that those of us who are more mature aren't allowed to be at the forefront of the mainstream conversation and everybody's in a panic, increasingly, as we've already started to see in other countries, it's going to seem as if it's a noble choice. And really, that's not the case, because we're supposed to be orienting our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, and our emotional investments towards creating things that make the quality of life better, not worse.
Yeah, look, it's one thing if you're a millionaire who comes down with ALS in their late 40s and the quality of life totally falls off a cliff, and you make this calculation that I'm at the end. I want to go out on my own terms. I want to be around the people that I love. I want to do this my way. I've always done things my way. You normally don't get a chance to sort of, plan your death, but in this particular case, maybe I can understand someone going down that path and feeling like they're going to take control of that situation and make those decisions before it's made for them. I get all of that, and that's fine. Where, like you said, where you get into this really uncomfortable spot is when someone is making this calculation, not because they don't, not because death is necessarily right around the door, but it's closer, and maybe I'm financially disadvantaged, and maybe I can't afford the care that I need, and my family can't afford the care that I need, and I love my family so much. The last thing in the world I want to do is put an additional burden on my family. And let's be honest, my quality of life isn't great right now. And you make that. I mean, I can see these calculations being made by somebody. I could see my amazing, sweet mother making a calculation that, like, I don't want to burden you with this. I mean, of course, it wouldn't be a burden to me, but I could see her thinking that might be a burden. And therefore, she's saying, I don't want to put you through this. I'd rather just go out now than leave you. I'm going to be dead anyway, and I don't want to leave you with $175,000 in medical bills. And now now I'm gone and you've got a financial problem. I can envision a situation where a very well-intending person tries to take the burden off of their family by saying, put it on me. I'll make the decision to check out, maybe a little earlier than I wanted to. But the last thing I want to do is not just leave you, but leave you guys in distress financially. This is a calculation that's being made currently, yeah?
Oh yeah, no, and you're exactly right. That's the emotional environment that's been created for us. It's been exacerbated through an experimental gene therapy campaign, ostensibly labeled as vaccines, as all of the various different toxicological exposures that we exist in, electrosmog, the current vaccine schedule it is, compounded by a variety of other things that erode our quality of life, and simultaneously gaslight us about it so that we run towards the people who are actually within this larger bureaucratic system that has not only failed humanity, but when you understand how it was created, it is the contemporary machination of war. So the machination of war is the delicacy by which we voluntarily step to the fore and say, hey, it's a better thing if we're just not around anymore. And that's framed in a way in which, in the mind of the individual and in the mind of the society that exists under that spell, it's like, oh, that's kind of beautiful. Wow, what a profound sacrifice they're making. They're a martyr. They're a hero. They're someone we should look up to. I want to off myself at 40 when I don't have the ability to do everything I want anymore too. And then you're like, really, people? Is that what we're going towards? And simultaneously, those who call themselves the elite are going to be migrating towards technocratic infusions, cocktails, where they experiment on us so that they themselves and no one else can try and reach for immortality. But really, it's just the greatest expanse of psychopathy. It's one of those things where it becomes so horrific that we lack the words to describe it. So we're at this very strange period of time where slow motion genocide has been thrust on us. We've been made increasingly sick our entire lives. And if we don't pull back from that, we're going to be nestled into systems that parasitically feed off in a predatory way our mercy and our kindness and our care so much that we'll choose not to be there.
Medical assistance in dying in Canada in 2021 or 2022 was at about 10,000 people that had chosen to make that decision. I think I read that the year after that, I'm not sure exactly, 2022, maybe it was 2023, that number had increased by 70%. It was at 17,000. I saw what I guess is a commercial. I'm really kind of stuck how to describe this. The only reason why I say it was a commercial is it was put together by a department store. It's a department store that I'm not really familiar with. It's mostly Canadian, although they have some stores in the U.S., and I don't know the name of it, and I wish I had it in front of me, but I'll look it up after this. And they put out like a 5-minute. The reason why I call it, it's essentially a commercial. I don't know what you would describe it. It's a lady out on a beach. Actually, you don't even ever see the lady. I don't think it's a video shoot out on the beach, and it's the voiceover of a lady, and maybe she's in there, maybe she's not. I just remember her voice, and she's explaining and she's talking about her end of life care, and she's talking about it in a very noble way and very serious way, and she's making the decision that this is, that she's choosing to take her life at the end, and the quality of life and all these things. And it's, and you listen to it and you get done. And I thought to myself, I have a marketing degree. I've worked at an ad agency. What exactly are you people selling? Is this lifestyle? Is it death style? Like, this feels gross to me. And I don't understand. Like, I could understand if it was a medical clinic that was doing this ad. I could understand even if it was the Canadian government trying to sell it. I couldn't quite understand why it was a department store that thought this was an angle that they wanted to go. And it occurred to me that so then I start to look in a little bit more into medical assistance in dying in Canada specific. And of course, you have to be a member of the Canadian healthcare. You can't this isn't going to turn into, at least now in its current incarnation, it's not going to turn into suicide tourism where people are coming from all over the world to die. Although I'm sure at some point it probably will. But did you notice that they changed the language in it from the first go around to where it is currently? It used to say that something along the lines of death was imminent, and now it was like death is proximate. And you're like, what is that, like broke up with your girlfriend? I mean, like, where's this line? Because death is imminent sounds pretty, like it's it's coming, right? This other version of it was vague, and it didn't, and they rewrote the language. So they did it for a reason. They intentionally made it more vague. We're already starting to see these numbers go up. Is this medical assistance in dying? Is this branding? Like, I mean, I'm getting all of Are we selling shirts here? What are we doing, Teace?
Man, so you made so many good points there. And from a legislative perspective, the way that this works for pretty much any issue, really, is that it'll start with something somewhere as almost like a trial balloon exploration of a subject. The basic language or wording of that official policy will be copy and pasted, implemented elsewhere, adjusted based on the regional population, and then it will be something that's expanded in a branded way that, generally speaking, people don't understand the implications of, because most people care more about branding than they do about understanding. They care more about their feelings than they do the actual impetus behind them, and how that can be something that's used used to malign all of our well-being. So it is something where we've watched what is a merciful idea percolate in public consciousness slowly, and then eventually it will reach a shifting point where it's conducive to the changing of mindset in the population at large. And when that happens, we start to experience social pressures much akin to what we saw during the COVID nightmare all over again, just in a different way. At a certain point, it might be taboo beyond just the ageism that we experience in society already to be around anymore when you're old, or being around anymore when you're old if you're not trying to digitally load yourself into some sort of machine or something like that. So there are all these threads of where they're trying to lead us. The department store mechanism by which they can go about doing that in a way where it's seemingly separate from the mandates of the state. But when you understand the various different oligarchic layers and social engineering apparatus that create all of this around us, there's no separation between any of it. It all comes down to how it makes you feel about what is real and which avenue you choose in an increasingly surreal future that just abuses us like cattle so much that we don't want to be here anymore. It's just mind-blowing. And that's why I appreciate talking to you about it so much, because I'm going to be going and talking to healthcare providers and front-end workers and all of their experiences and everything, but they don't have that much, much broader lens and perspective on how all of this was brought into being. And so it's all of those layers at once. And that's why it's so important to just have those conversations and create platforms to extend them to the public, because otherwise they're going to get blindsided, not understanding that they have a choice, not the choice of how they're going to die, but the choice of whether or not they see that as something that should be put on other people prematurely in their life. No, it doesn't have to be. We can change that.
I can't help but think here in the United States of the Social Security system that we have, the diabolical, destined to fall apart Social Security Ponzi scheme that everybody that's paying attention knows isn't going to be around when they go to collect it. And we know who is eligible for it. You have to be of a certain age. And of course you pay into Social Security and you hope to get paid out at the end. It's a gigantic scam. It should never exist, of course. But for those that paid in their entire life, I mean, I think it is probably fair that to them that they think they're going to get something on the way out. But the mentality of these people at the sort of top of the food chain has always been that this governing business would be a whole lot easier if it wasn't for all these goddamn people. And so they would love to get rid of them as much as they can. They have words for us, useless eaters, and they consider us to be parasites and sort of a drain on their system, especially people that are not working, either because they're unemployable or because they're old and they've worked their whole life. Now, we might consider people that have worked their entire life and retired to have earned the right to not have to work and do all that stuff. But the state views them as from a balance sheet standpoint. They see them as a liability, not an asset, right? And if you can get a lot of these liabilities to go away, you don't have to pay them, right? Or maybe you pay like a small sum to the family. I think that I'm not an expert on Social Security claims or anything like that, but I think you can claim a little something, but you don't, but you don't have to pay this guy. If this guy's decided to end his life at 65, well, from the state standpoint, at least we didn't have to pay him out for the next 20 years, right? So is this also some sort of weird financial calculation that's being made by the state as well?
Oh, yeah, no. Foundationally, all of your points are exactly spot on, and you zeroed in on what may be the single largest catalyst to try and remove us as if we're nothing other than cattle, which is when there is not the financial anything there anymore that would allow people to basically push this away for end-of-life care. And instead, they'd have to bring these people into the family unit again, and they'd see them as if that's a liability, a financial encumbrance in the middle of everything breaking apart. So the way in which these people plan is in like 10, 20, 30, 50, 100-year margins of how they can have these broad brushstrokes culminate in things that we in the public never see coming. And that's, to a large extent, what that entire Social Security Ponzi scheme has been. I have a family member who works in end-of-life care, and he talks about how 50% of his time is just filling out paperwork for reimbursal. That's gives you a sense of how people trapped inside of these systems are parasitically fed upon by those who deem us the parasites. And so it's this monstrous, just terrifyingly inept, incompetent by design system that has profoundly good people caught inside of it, trying to do everything that they can for the people who are just vulnerable at the end of life. But then there's this sort of tsunami coming. There's this storm that we're just on the cusp of. And the question then becomes, what do we do about it when all of those things are pulled out from under you at the same time? And you succinctly described that in your book title of The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. But to a certain extent, this is that in a global capacity. And it's something that is going to continue to encumber humanity until we figure out that these financial, parasitic psychopaths and the systems that they have built are designed to unfold a slow motion genocide. And that means you and your loved ones in their most vulnerable moments. If you didn't experience that yet in COVID, you're going to in the future of what they have planned for you.
There's a line in your movie that talks about cheaper ways to die. And I wrote that down and I thought, like, we're still talking about money when it comes to like the end of life. You know, talk to people on their deathbed, how much they care about money, right? What does it matter to them? I mean, to the extent, you know, like, oh, I've been doing all this work. I did all this work. I made all this money. Here I am at the tail end of my life. What did it get me? Well, maybe it got you something good. Maybe it bought you the right kind of misery. I don't know. But, the idea, the concept of cheaper ways to die, to me, just I thought, you know, I can envision one of those boardroom tables and all these Project for a New American Century lunatics out there saying, you know, here for today's presentation, we're going to show you cheaper ways to die. Right. We're going to show all the ways in which you and your country back home can find to, you know, cut costs with all these people that are on their way out. You know, they're on their way out anyway. They're not going to vote for you. You don't have to worry about losing their vote. They're dead, right? Let's find a way to, you know, like value engineer the dying process, right? I mean, what a disgusting way of looking at this. But that's the job of the state, right? To be disgusting when it comes to human life and suffering.
No, it really is. It's inherently evil. A lot of people still aren't at the point where they appreciate that yet, and I can understand they haven't seen the broader perspective, and they still see it as if it's a necessary evil. But I've always found that very verbiage to be just insane, because that's not how evil works. It isn't necessary. It's a consequence of our refusal to face up to the reality of something and then make it better than it was. And as far as that specific line, it's in the moment of time in the film where her mother's receiving a very bad diagnosis for her health. And basically they're talking about the financial realities of what care is there for her. And the doctor, the person who plays the part, is Native American, and he's saying it in a sincere way that there all are alternative ways of going about it. And it's in response to that she says cheaper ways to die. And that's a line that's in there because a lot of people who work in healthcare themselves don't understand the intricacy and failings of these various different systems. If you actually look at chemo and the efficacy of it, it is horrific. It kills people very often, if not was designed to do so while maintaining a monopoly that detracts from the ability to legitimately pursue alternative therapeutics. And so from her perspective, that thing that costs more is automatically better. but there's a greater cost to it that she doesn't necessarily recognize. And while he's a doctor inside of a system who has a deeper point of view, nevertheless, he's constrained by how she's been propagandized. So it's this weird just situation that everyone finds themselves in where they think they know best because they receive the best sales pitch. And you won't even listen to people who are trying to step outside of that for what the reality actually is.
Yeah. Chemotherapy, the effectiveness of chemotherapy, just so people know, in the United States, it's 2.1% effective of keeping you cancer-free after 5 years. In Australia, it's 2.3%. I don't know why it's different, but it is.
Well, I'll add this to that. I mean, if you get into so Bruce Lipton's book, Biology of Belief, he was a cellular biologist, and he, in essence, the last chapter of his book, he went into the power of the placebo effect. They took a group of, I think it was like 7 or 12 people who needed knee surgery. They did the incision, they put them under, they sewed it back up, they told them that they got the knee surgery, and all of them healed as a result of that. So you need to factor in how profoundly powerful our resilience and psychosomatic response to being told that we're getting the best care is. Even with that, that's the survival rate after that many years. That means that it almost negates the degree to which the power of suggestion can allow us to regenerate of our own accord. So it's one of those things where it's just diabolical on so many different levels, and we still exist in that just haze of not understanding any of that because of the system and that malaise.
And much in like sort of the inverse of the knee surgery. Doctor comes to your bedside and says, I have bad news. You have stage 5 brain cancer. What does that mean, doc? How long do I get your affairs in order? I don't know. 6 weeks, maybe. You go home and you go, oh, holy shit. What have and next thing you know, you're dead in 6 weeks, right? Now, to be fair, cancer kills people, and maybe cancer, maybe if you didn't know, you were going to go in 6 weeks anyway. But I mean, how many studies do we have to read about placebo effect, nocebo effect, all of these, where the mind enters the picture, things get a little gray, right? Like, we don't know, the medical industry doesn't want to tell you, you have the power to help yourself by your state of mind or the your positivity or being around good people or being out in the sun and being, they don't want you to think about it. They want you to feel that there's a very specific way of treating this. It's in a hospital. It's definitely big pharmaceutical drugs that cost a lot of money. Got to go through your insurance. This doctor who's wearing a white lab coat is got to be an expert because he has a white lab coat on, right? And we're taught that psychologically, that means authority. That's why Peter Hotez does his home interviews from Zoom while in his home office while wearing his white lab coat, even though he's not treating patients at his home, because it's psychological, projection. It's trying to condition you to think, to associate this person equals they have all the knowledge. But boy, if that doctor came in and said, I have great news for you, I don't see any cancer in your brain. Maybe you just had a bad headache, buddy, but you look good to me. You look good to go. Like, go enjoy your summer. And you let that guy out, and you have the same person that you just gave him a 6 weeks to end of life diagnosis. I'd love to see I'd love to see the quality of life for both of those people. I'd love to see how things change when the mind is introduced into this equation, because we'd be kidding ourselves if we say, we've seen it. We've all seen it with our own eyes. Somebody, like, the wheels fall off and then they just go downhill quickly and it's over before you're like, damn, that was fast. Like, they went in, they had one little issue and then they turned into another issue. And next thing you know, we're at their funeral, and that seemed really quick for something. And then meanwhile, you've got other people that just seem to keep going and going and going. The power of the mind is not to be underestimated, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's such a profound part of what's happening. And that's why so much from a predictive programming, funding of shows like ER, Grey's Anatomy, all of the constant saturation of the PR campaigns that we develop our opinions by, that saturates and marinades the mind until it's all but impossible to remove our deep investment of emotion from those fictional portrayals of the situation. It's something that to get a person over the assumption that they know what they're talking about without traversing the astroturf industry, which for those who don't know, I'm not talking about fake grass. I'm talking about how there is an industry in a multifaceted capacity that makes it so that there's a 90 to 95% discrepancy between what the peer review literature says and what the mainstream publications about that peer review literature says. Add to that we're in a crisis of science where 50% of findings cannot be repeated by the very people who conduct the studies. Add to that the conflict of interest of the people who funded them, the very faulty nature of the peer-reviewed process itself, where it's basically just people agreeing with one another, and you start to enter into the basically just like chasms of like compounding conundrums that build these mazes that we are born into. And then it takes our entire lives to remove ourselves from it. And if you actually get out, they pull your medical license, they call you a hack, they call you a quack, they sue you, they ruin you. And if you're actually resilient in the face of all that, they might even kill you. So holy shit, this literally is the contemporary machination of war. And it's built on every different level, which is full spectrum dominance via fifth dimensional warfare.
God, it's so true. We are at war with the state. They are using the medical industry as the front lines. They have already launched a massive propaganda campaign to get us thinking a certain way. I speculated. I was wrong about this, but I think you could probably understand where my mind was going. But I speculated during COVID. When people get on an airplane now, or well, really for the last, I don't know, since 9/11, right? They'll do the thing where it's like, families traveling with small children under 2 years old, you can board first. People that need assistance getting on with wheelchairs and whatnot, and then they go, do we have any active duty military here, right? That was after 9/11. Any active duty military? Oh, you get to go to the front of the line. I started saying, you watch, they'll do any active doctors. They didn't do it. The reason why I thought they would do it wasn't because I think doctors should be at the front of the line for getting on airplanes, but it felt like another way of cementing in your minds that these people are above reproach, that they are such heroes that they get on the airplane first. Like we let them on, like they are. Don't you question them? Who do you think you are? You're questioning this guy. This guy's practically a hero. He's got a business card that says DR period on it. Like he's a doctor. Like you're not a doctor. What do you know, dummy? And so again, like another, it didn't wind up happening. Although they did build a big statue to a nurse. I did see that, and I thought, oh, perfect. Let's deify these people. Let's make it so that nobody can ever criticize them because they are heroes. They're gods, and if you can get that, and I think to a certain extent, that has been done. Maybe not with the airplane scenario that I speculated about, but this idea that, you questioning a doctor. I got to tell you, Teace, this story of an interaction I had with a pediatrician back in California when we had relocated from Vegas back to Southern California, where I was from, and our daughter was like a year old maybe, and we were scouting out pediatricians, and we didn't really know where to go or who, we didn't have a referral. We just kind of, let's go to this first one. Let's just meet with them. We'll see. We're not doing the shots. Like in our minds, we're not doing shots. We know we're not doing shots. She hasn't had any shots. We told her pediatrician in Las Vegas, we're not doing it. It's a non-negotiable. And he was like, fine, whatever, and he was cool with it. We go to this pediatrician. It's our first time meeting him. We go into the office. First of all, I notice every kid in the waiting room is sick. There's no wellness visit. Every kid there is sick. And I was like, we kind of like, we walked in, I was kind of like, let's stand, like, let's get away from these sick people. We went in and what's, we're just scouting out. We're just trying to check out anything. Okay, good. Nice to meet you. How are we doing on the shots? That was the doctor's first question to us. And I go, well, we're on a delayed schedule, which was code for we're not doing it. And his response to me, I swear to God, he goes, what's the matter? You don't trust the government? And I thought he was kidding. And I go, no. And he goes, And he has his clipboard and he starts to write something down. He goes, all right, well, now I know what I'm working with here. And I just looked at my wife and I go, we're out of here. Let's go. And we left. And you need to be able to have that conviction. And I'm not saying I'm some like brave hero or anything like that, but you could get pushed into a scenario in which the doctor is like, who do you think you are? You're making the medical decision? Did you go to medical school? No, you don't know anything. You're going to get your baby killed by listening to people on the internet, you dummy, you tinfoil hat wearing dummy. You know what I mean? So like, if you don't have your shit together and you don't have you're not strong in your convictions, these doctors are trained to push you around. They will make you feel like you are throwing your baby into a volcano by doing this, like the pseudoscience, man. It's so, after I saw that, I was like, we kind of looked at each other. It's like, you see how this industry is? It's a cult and it's a cartel, if we're being more specific. And if you aren't in it, they don't want anything to do with you. Like that guy didn't want us in his practice. We were going to screw up his 64% to get made whole by the big pharma. So we were going to bring his percentages down. He didn't want to deal with us either.
Oh my God. No, that's such a perfect analogy and an example. And good for you for having the knowledge to stand up to that kind of thing, because a lot of people just get beaten down by it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand the perk structure, which is built into the reimbursement of them fulfilling vaccination status, not only according to like the 72 shots or however many they're doing internally in the United States right now in the developmental windows of children, but also add to that the federal incentives that were handed down for the COVID era and all these different things. And I'll give a citation from Marty McCary, who wrote the book, The Price We Pay. And it's in essence getting into the idea that his contention is about 20 to 25% of all procedures that are done internally within the United States are completely unnecessary. So that's a predatory loom that exists, that balloons an already inflated system. The number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States is medical debt. And then you can add to that the encumbrance that falls on an individual should they choose to go along with the system and find themselves wounded for life. Disabilities have gone up significantly in the past few years. The average lifespan has dropped. We're looking at this cartel moving into overdrive. And it's overdrive because the people who are inside of it are, to a certain extent, just trying to cover their bottom line. And their bottom line throws you under the bus. So it's something where if you do not have that firsthand knowledge, the courage to stand by the people you love and basically say no to these people, then they only know to see you as, like you said, just someone who's crazy. So they'll make it like you're the bad guy. It's insane.
And they hate statistics, but you can explain to your doctor in America, if you're in the United States, you can explain that the top 3 leading causes of death inside the United States. Number 1, heart disease. Number 2, cancer. Number 3, the American medical industry is the number 3 leading cause of death inside America. They're killing people. When you have 20 to 25%, as you said, of the procedures being unnecessary, that's a mechanic going in and saying you need a new axle when you don't. You know what I mean? That's what shitheads do. It's one thing if it's your car. It's another thing if it's your lungs. You know what I mean? Like, this should never happen. These people should be taken away in handcuffs. Forget losing your medical license. You should be taken away in handcuffs. Not that I like the state or anything like that, but you know what I mean? You are committing. These are crimes. I know people. I know I have close personal friends whose parent, one guy that I'm thinking of in particular, his dad went in for a routine medical procedure and never came home. He was killed on the operating room table. So this happened. And I also have friends that I went to school with who are doctors, and they talk about the insurance. They talk about like the amount of liability insurance they have to carry and the business behind medicine. And like, frankly, you know, I mean, I don't respect the doctors that have gone through the Rockefeller medical schools and gone into this line of work and have treated all of these people the way they have. But I also think that there's something to be said for a lot of these people that became doctors want to help people. And I think they have good intentions. They want to get them off. Obviously, they know that it's a profession with prestige and it's lucrative financially and everything. But what they don't understand, what they don't figure out until they're in it, is that they're also running a business too. And that is something that catches them off guard, where they're like, I have to carry insurance, and I have to have this, and I have to do that, and I'm part of this practice, I'm part of a group of practices, and they start to get into it. And that what they discover is that the vast majority of their job is paperwork. It's not doctoring. They got into it because they wanted to be a doctor and help people, and they a lot of them did. And what they find is that they're unfulfilled from a medical standpoint because they're dealing with the system all the time. Is that, I mean, and in your film, that's that's a sticking point for them. It's like, well, the system won't allow this, or the system, you can't, or you got to be in the system in order to get that. And it's like, well, I don't want to be in the system. Well, if you want that, you got to be in the system. That's the way it works. I'm not trying to say it's a good system. I'm just trying to say that's how the system works. So even the doctors that recognize it, they recognize it too late, right? They're trapped in this system, and you find, I mean, I'm not trying to say all doctors are awful. Of course not. I think that there's a lot of really good doctors that wake up in a system and they go, I either have to adapt and be a function in this system, or I have to acknowledge that I've just wasted the last decade of my life going through all this medical school, and I don't want to do this anymore, and I want to do something else. But how many people do that? They can't do that because here comes your student loans, tick tock. You got to pay those things back forever, and that keeps you in. So it is a trap for the doctors as well, is it not?
Oh yeah, no, you're so right. And I really like to use the example of one of the films that was put out there to appeal to reason in the public to a certain extent that touches on this. And it's a Robin Williams film. We all probably know it or have seen it. It's Patch Adams. And it's actually a pretty good movie. And it's about someone who goes in after basically being in a mental asylum because he wanted to end his life. And there he helped people, and he realized that was the thing that was missing from his life. So then he went to med school, and he realized that a lot of people there were just rigidly trying to do it in a strict by the book way without just caring for the people that they were there for, without bringing laughter or joy into their lives. So he took a more like this clownish approach to the idea of providing joy to people's lives. Now, the interesting thing is that movie is based on a real person, Patch Adams, and they were able to get the funding together to make the movie telling the story of his life, to sentimentalize the idea that there are good people in the medical industry trying to change it for the better. But at the same time, they weren't able to get the funding together for the facility that he was trying to create in reality. The paradigm that has been made for us is so that we'll fund and invest in the PR campaign, but we won't actually step back from that long enough to invest in the firsthand practitioners who are trying to make it better. And that's another part of this storm.
Isn't that interesting? And also sort of like a perfect metaphor for where we are.
Yeah.
We'll spend money on the sizzle, right? We'll make it look all good. The glossy sales pitch for this timeshare, and then you peel it back, and it's like communism. You're like, it looked good. Hey, we've got socialized medicine. You know what that means? It means that everybody gets taken care of. Oh, that's great. Is it high quality medicine? Well, I mean, we said everyone was going to get medicine. We didn't say it was going to be any good, right? So there's that component to it. There's the money side of things. There's, so I think that people that get honest and go through that system, they start to see the cracks that's been in there. And I mean, we're not even going to touch on what we saw during COVID, which was rampant criminality. I mean, and there's people, you see Cuomo, or, both of the Cuomos out there doing PR damage control, and like, well, like we didn't know what we didn't know. That excuse isn't going to work for me. I'm sorry. You made people say goodbye to their loved ones on FaceTime. Fuck you forever.
Yeah. There's
no expiration date on my hatred for these people. It will never go away. They will never absolve themselves. But I think if anything good came of COVID, and there wasn't really much, I think that people that dealt with the medical industry got a different look at it, right? That they were able to go, Well, that went a whole lot differently than I thought it was going to. I thought that maybe Aunt Judy was just going to go check in and get some pills, and the next thing you know, she's on a ventilator and she's dead. I mean, my friend Kev Baker, from Kev Baker Show, who I did his show once a month for 4 years, and Kev became one of my best favorite people, like just a great guy. As soon as I heard he went into the hospital, and he had a lung issue to begin with, as soon as he went in, we knew he wasn't coming out, and he didn't, and they killed him with a ventilator. And so I'll never feel differently. How, in making this movie, I'm curious, how did everyone else, the rest of the crew, feel about this? Was this something that the crew was like, this is a story that needs to be told, or were they sort of indifferent, like we're just actors playing a part, or was this personal for any of them?
So when it gets into a story this heavy that touches on personal grief, that touches on systems that we see one way when really they're another, generally speaking, people don't want to talk about that. When it comes to conversations about grief in general, they don't want to talk about that. One of the actors in this film, Daniel Harry, had also played a part in another short film that I'd done called Blindfold. And part of the structure to that, it's about 9/11 truth and coming to terms with that. And one of the family members won't listen to it. And what my directing strategy for that was to not talk about the legitimate implications of the film the entire time, but I had him watch Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, like Blueprint for Destruction, the night before the scene where he's coming to terms with what he's just looked at. And that's something that influences and affects the actor in a profound way, because they're like, okay, wait a minute, this is really disorienting and overwhelming. And then that lends to the performance. I didn't really pull any tricks like that when it came to the broader information, but I did do things like having Hannah and Laura, the main character and the woman who played her mother, they slept in the beds of the characters in the house that we were filming in, so that they were just there in that comfortable environment with each other. It was one of those things where you provide that shared living space so that they can get closer to one another. It isn't that they bring to it some sort of embittered resentment or personal grief. And if they do, once again, they don't want to talk about it because how difficult it can be to have those conversations. But it comes out in the performance that they do and how they feel deep inside. Even if it isn't their own conscious awareness, it comes out. And that's something that lends to the power of the story and the power of the performances in the movie.
Teace, it is a great movie. It is a fantastic film. People need to see this. I mean, it is. I wish you didn't need to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish that this was science fiction, but it's not. It's relevant, and it's. I think a lot of people will connect with it. And you have a way of saying things with your films, and I watched the 9/11 one as well, and I thought that was really well done. You have a way of you don't say what needs to be said. You let the viewer work through it themselves. They start thinking about what needs to be said. There's no preaching coming from you in this or in the 9/11 movie as well. It's just, hey, take a look at this. These are human beings having to deal with some real life emotions and dilemmas and how you go through that, man. And I think people can relate to this regardless. For those that want to check it out, and I encourage you to check it out, oldmethemovie.com is the place to go. You're in it. You're a pretty good actor too, by the way. I don't know about that director you're working for, though.
Yeah.
But you were pretty good.
To understand Charlie's joke, I wrote, directed, produced, and edited, and then I acted in it as well, because it had saved me about $3 or $4 grand to having to pay someone else. So, and as far as like what you're talking about with the tone of the film, you're so right, because you can't talk about this stuff openly and honestly with people who aren't there yet in their trajectory of coming to terms with the reality of the system. So it is a film that appeals to the people that we in our circles affectionately call normies. It's a thing that you can pass along to someone who's a normie, and maybe all of a sudden they'll be able to see something that touches on the realm that we exist in. And that's really important because we need artistic lenses that allow us to come together and appreciate what's happening around us, even if they aren't on the same level of information or the same level of conversation. That's okay. Charlie's been doing this for a lifetime, and it shows through his work. And I've been trying to do the same thing in a different approach, and we're all coming at it in different ways so that the waves of devastation that are ahead don't have to bury us. We can find our way to do better, have the conversations that we need to, include people who we might otherwise feel are excluded, and that's sort of what's ahead of us now. We can look at the pandemic that wasn't as being behind us, but they're going to pull bullshit like that in one variation or another all over again. And so we need to be proactive, and we need to reach out to our family and to our friends. And this is a film that helps you do that.
Where's the best place for people to find you and to support your work?
Yeah, so I do all kinds of different narratives that focus on controversy, and the best way to find all of my books and movies and short films and the shows that I create is at my website, teace.ca. It's TEACE.ca. Two of the major projects that I'm doing right now is promotions for this film, holdmethemovie.com. Another one is my show, conspiracysynergy.com, which is a lighthearted way of reaching out to our normie friends and family and helping them understand the reality. Go ahead.
The Conspiracy Synergy is fantastic. You're the only person I know that takes like 4 months to make an episode, but when it comes out and you go, holy shit, now I know why it took 4 months.
Yeah, no, it's surreal. Like, the next one that I'm doing is going to take me basically a year and a half to do it. But that's because I'm reading like 60 books or more. It's on the occult, man. I actually have to learn it and understand it. So it's brutal. And then the other way to find me that I do in addition to all of that artwork and stuff is I co-host the Revolution Wednesday segment of AM Wake Up, which is available on Rumble and Rockfin. And Charlie's been on that show and hung out. And really some of the most amazing and wonderful alternative media personalities have been on that show. So it's a great way to wake up to some truth and keep it lighthearted and fun.
I call it the Tomorrow Show. It's not the Today Show. The Today Show is, 3 hours in the morning of nonsense. This is the Tomorrow Show because you're going to be learning about stuff that the mainstream media will be telling you tomorrow. That's Teace Snyder, everybody. He's the absolute best. He's one of the true good guys in this industry. Please support his work. Filmmakers that put this stuff out, this is not going to make a lot of people a lot of money, but it costs a lot to make it. It costs a lot of effort. If you are in a position where you are financially stable and secure and would like to contribute to this outstanding film, Teace has made it available to you for free. So take a look and see what you think. And if you want to connect with me, the best way to do that is through the website, macroaggressions.io. Talk to you again later. Thanks, everybody.